Tonight on CFTK-TV, the Northern Lights Wildlife has a new initiative for moose rehabilitation. The BC NDP delayed their legislation up until February, and small businesses prepare for a different type of shopping season.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, I'm Damian Smith, and thank you for joining us here on CFTK-TV. Well, moose are found across the province, but 70% of BC's moose live in northern BC, and the BC government has been studying moose population trends and have found a steep decline in numbers in the recent years. One organization in the Northwest has been working hard to help the moose that they can and are now fundraising in hopes of saving their operations. CFTK's Jayleen Matthews has more.
Angelica and Peter Langen started the Northern Lights Wildlife Society over 38 years ago, inspired by a heartbreaking story of two orphaned moose calves. Since then, the Langens have successfully raised and released numerous moose back into the wild, with post-release monitoring showing these animals not only surviving, but thriving and reproducing. Angelica says often they get moose whose mothers have been struck by trains or cars, leaving the calf unable to care for itself.
They can't survive on their own. They're still too young. They need milk, and because they're not eating solids to an amount that they can survive on that. So most of them come in at the end of May, beginning of June. Once you head into the fall, then the calves are big enough to survive on their own should the mother get hit then. So it's the really young ones that we take in, and then we just provide them with a safe environment until they're old enough to look after themselves.
Recent shifts in their area have resulted in a new challenge. The moose they release have become targets for local hunters.
We had moose shot on neighbors' properties. So it's not feasible anymore to do the slow releases because we're basically just risking a higher death rate.
The Wildlife Society has come up with a solution for this problem, fencing 10 acres of their property for protection and purchasing a livestock trailer to transport and release the young moose in safer environments.
This is our only option to continue the program, and the program is really important. The moose populations have decreased up to 70% in some areas in the province. And so I think each calf that we rescue because the mom has been hit by a train or a car is really important for the population. And the females that have returned have proven that they do a lot for the population by having 1 or 2 babies every year that they are then contributing. So it's not just the individual animal that we're saving, but we're also helping to stabilize populations.
In connection with Giving Tuesday, every dollar that gets donated to the cause before December 3rd will be matched up to $78,000. The Society is hoping to raise $250,000 to fund the Moose Project. Donations can be made at www.wildlifeshelter.com. For CFTK TV News, I'm Jayleen Matthews.
Well, the Houston District Chamber of Commerce recently made an announcement in their latest news release that was about the reopening of a store. What was previously known as Countrywide Sports is undergoing a grand reopening under the brand new name Dealman's Sporting Goods Incorporated. The release also mentioned that the store's owners, Jonathan and Terry Ann Dealman, are proud to be the ones that are bringing back a beloved community store under a different name with an extensive amount of renovations. Another part of the release disclosed that a ribbon cutting ceremony for the store will be held this coming Friday and will begin at 10 a.m. with the store's address being at 2860 Hamblin Frontage Road. If you're flying through the United States, mandates for canceled and refunded tickets might be a little bit more favorable for Canadians. Here's Alex Karpa of CTV News.
New regulations now force U.S. airlines to provide swift and automatic refunds for passengers when their flights are either canceled or significantly delayed.
It really does take, passenger rights to the next level.
Those flying through the U.S. can get a refund if their domestic flight is delayed for more than 3 hours or if their international flight is delayed for more than 6 hours. The mandate states airlines must provide refunds within 7 days for credit card and within 20 days for other payment methods.
There's nothing you have to do. It's going to be automatically distributed and into your bank account, into your credit card, for everybody that's affected by that flight cancellation or that flight delay.
In Canada, it's up to travelers to know their rights and requires them to go through the refund or compensation process, which can be a long and painful one. But Canadians traveling through the U.S. or flying on American carriers will qualify for the new U.S. rules.
Would we like to see what we're seeing in Europe or in the US from a passenger standpoint? Of course, that's what we want. But airlines have been doing this for a while, and they know how to work the system.
Gabor Lukács, who is the president of Air Passenger Rights, says Canadians still have a right to a refund when there are delays or cancellations, but is calling on the federal government to simplify the rules for passengers.
The idea is for smooth interaction between passengers and airlines, the rules have to be very easy to understand, very easy to see, very easy to implement. And unfortunately, that's not what we are seeing happening.
The legislation itself is still very new, only coming into effect at the end of October. And although it's good news for Canadian passengers, it's still unknown when this legislation could make its way north of the border. Alex Carpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Well, after being on hiatus since the COVID-19 pandemic, the ever-popular Jingle Boat Express, which is an event supported by the likes of the Prince Rupert Port Authority and Northern Savings Credit Union, is making its return. On December 8th at the Cow Bay Marina, 4 different sailings will give local families the chance to set sail with Santa Claus, and will see all their tickets and money go to the Friendship House Association of Prince Rupert as a way to support other local families and kids in need. This trip's in question will take off at 12 p.m., 1 p.m., 2 p.m., and 3 p.m. And for those looking to purchase tickets for this boat ride, can do so by clicking a link that is located on the Port of Prince Rupert's website. While in Vancouver, a pair of people were affected from an assault which left 1 woman dead and 1 man with serious injuries. And with International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women just yesterday, it is bad timing, but also proposes a much-needed conversation here in British Columbia. Ben Milger from CTV reports.
Police say a 911 call brought them to this Rupert Street house late Friday evening, where they made a gruesome discovery.
When our officers arrived on scene, they discovered a woman in her 20s who was deceased and a man in his 20s who had serious injuries. Our officers made an arrest of a suspect, a man in his 40s, at the scene.
The deceased victim has been identified as 26-year-old Roshni Gurung. According to police, the suspect, 46-year-old Tenzin Choige, was her husband.
When we're talking about femicide, half of the women that were killed in British Columbia in 2024 were killed by their intimate partner. And that is appalling to us.
On the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, YWCA Metro Vancouver is rolling out this ad campaign. It hopes to remind people gender-based violence is happening in their communities and encourage them to lobby the provincial government to declare the issue an epidemic.
We know BC has the 2nd highest rate of gender-based violence in Canada, and that's why this call to action is so important. We're asking anyone, the public, other organizations, sign on to this call to ask the province to declare gender-based violence an epidemic.
Statistics show 48% of all women in British Columbia have experienced gender-based violence. For Indigenous women, that number jumps to 64%. The Ministry of the Attorney General has requested research into the problem and may be open to declaring it an epidemic.
Absolutely. We are looking at all the recommendations that are being brought forward to the AG's office. And when the report comes through, we'll be pursuing the recommendations that are discussed. And we'll see.
It's too late for Gurung, the woman killed here, but there's still time to help others. Ben Milger, CTV News, Vancouver.
Coming up next, the NDP delayed their caucus up until February, leaving the Conservatives disappointed. Welcome back. Well, the NDP legislature will not gather for a couple of months, and many are disappointed that David Eby and the rest of his caucus are not living up to their promises. Rob Buffum from CTV has more.
The tree at the BC legislature is already up and decorated, but you'd be hard-pressed to spot an MLA in the hallways, and they won't gather in the chamber for more than 2 months until February's throne speech.
This delay of nearly 4 months, I think, is wholly unacceptable. They need to authorize some of their key promises through legislation.
Mere days after the October 19th election, Eby said his team was going to hit the ground running.
My intent, if we can, to have a sitting, get the speaker elected, and get the legislature working for people.
And he told reporters last month he planned to hold a fall sitting.
I think British Columbians want us to get to work right away on the issues that they're concerned about. That's certainly the message that I took.
Friday, he changed his mind, pointing to Raj Chauhan as already approved for the role as Speaker, and advising there wouldn't be a fall sitting, and the earliest MLAs will gather here is for February's throne speech.
I think it's terribly problematic. As a point of principle, the legislature should resume as quickly as possible after an election.
I think, quite frankly, he's afraid of going to the legislature and being shown up. I mean, we've got a very solid Conservative caucus that's itching to get at it.
Just because the House isn't sitting doesn't mean that government isn't working. Cabinet is meeting this week. New ministers are getting briefed on their new roles and new portfolios.
Still unclear how British Columbians will get their $1,000 rebate promised by Eby during the campaign. His office confirms it is coming ASAP next year, but whether it requires legislation isn't determined yet.
I think he should have called the legislature back and asked for the spending authority this fall so we could have got it done and be able to help people.
The Ministry of Finance is working on the most effective way to get that delivered to British Columbians.
For now, though, the most obvious gifts provided by the legislature sit under the tree.
And turning to tonight's weather, the coast should have some showers with winds coming from the southeast at 20 kilometers per hour, increasing to 40 at times, except 60 over the coastal sections. The temperature should be steady near 3 degrees. The Terrace and Kitimat region should see cloudy conditions with a 30% chance of flurries at 2 centimeters, with periods of snow beginning near midnight. The Bulkley Valley and Lakes District should be partially cloudy with fog patches developing later in the evening, and the low will be -19. And now on to your weekly weather forecast. After some flurries today, the Prince Rupert area should go back to its normal state with steady temperatures and rain for the rest of the week. The high will be 8 degrees on Saturday and the low will be 2 degrees on Thursday and Friday night. The Terrace and Kitimat region should have consistent snow for the rest of the week with an expected 5 centimeters tomorrow, and the high will be -1 on Sunday and the low will be -4 tomorrow. The Bulkley Valley should have a little bit less snow compared to Terrace and Kitimat, but should have a few higher temperatures within the next couple of days, with the low being -12 tomorrow and the high being -3 on Sunday. And now onto your Northwest roadside report. For more updates, and make sure to check out drivebc.ca. On Highway 16, there's utility work on Haida Gwaii, snowing between Broman Lake and Sheraton, utility work in Vanderhoof. Highway 37, there is roadside brushing between Misiaden Junction and Cranberry Junction, utility work between Bell 1 Bridge and Deltaic Crescent Bridge. On Highway 37, there is bridge maintenance between Bear River Bridge number 1 and Misiaden Maintenance Yard. These are what the cameras were looking like around the Northwest. Still to come, how BC reacted to the large tariffs that Donald Trump expects to put on the Canada and U.S. border. Welcome back. Well, with Black Friday sales underway right now and more on the way, many small businesses may have more challenges, but that does not mean that sales are restricted to the larger corporations. Here's Heather Wright of CTV.
The Christmas music is playing. The wreaths are being made. The busy season for Bruno Duarte has begun.
I'd say for the next 3 weeks is going to be is our big main push for sales.
Duarte owns a flower shop in Toronto, one of many small businesses preparing for holiday shoppers, many of whom remain cautious.
Even for us, like purchasing everything from compared to last year, it's gone up. So it's just, yeah, it's everybody's feeling the pinch.
According to a survey for the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, 46% of Canadians plan to spend less for the holidays this year than they did last. Only 8% plan to spend more.
Yeah, we're trying to stay as tight to a budget as we can, for sure.
While inflation has cooled, prices remain high for both consumers and businesses. The CFIB is encouraging people to do as much shopping at local businesses as possible.
Your dollar goes a lot further when it's spent in your local community. In fact, 66 cents on every dollar spent local stays local. That compares to only 9 cents when you're shopping at, say, Amazon.
And while Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals online are hard to miss, prices at the local shop down the road might be even better.
Go into your small business and check. I think people think that online is a lot more price competitive than it actually is. Tons of small businesses are running sales around Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Cyber Monday as well. It really is worth a look.
Black Friday marks the unofficial start to the shopping season. It's the day after American Thanksgiving, but because the holiday is so late this year, there are actually 5 fewer days between November 29th and Christmas Eve. A shorter shopping season, something else retailers are having to contend with. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
And with Donald Trump preparing to serve his second term as U.S. president, he's also looking at imposing large tariffs on trade between the U.S. and Canada, especially here in British Columbia. And Craig Krause has more in Vancouver.
Reaction is pouring in across the province after U.S. President-elect Donald Trump announced a 25% tariff on all goods coming from Canada and Mexico into that country, but it comes to the catch.
He wants to try and make the border safe. He thinks that Canada is a source of insecurity.
Trump, who takes office in January, said he would impose the tariff until the two countries clamp down on drugs, particularly fentanyl, and migrants crossing the border in a move that would appear to violate a free trade deal. Premier David Eby posting to social media Monday night, Trump's tariffs would hurt Canadians and Americans alike. Canadians must stand united. Ottawa must respond with strength. The BC Chamber of Commerce also firing back, calling the news concerning. It would have significant consequences for businesses of all sizes. And the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade saying this should be a wake-up call. The U.S. is the province's most important trading partner, accounting for more than half the province's commodity exports in 2023.
Hopefully this is something that doesn't happen, and that that they cooler heads prevail, and that these issues will get resolved.
The BC Lumber Trade Council is watching the developments closely. They say the province makes up around 40% of the country's lumber exports to the U.S. and brings in roughly $5 billion per year. But the president of the council believes it is not just British Columbians who will feel the impacts of the tariffs.
That's an added cost that needs to be passed through to the consumer. For some of the producers in Canada, though, if they're not able to pass on that cost, they may not be able to produce, and so that just restricts the supply, and that has socioeconomic impacts on Canadians.
Essentially driving up the cost of building homes in the U.S. while also hurting the BC economy. Now all eyes will be on Ottawa to see if there's a resolution that can be made before Trump takes office, and if Trump follows through. Craig Krause, CTV News, Vancouver.
And now we take a look at the stock market, where we have a sizable drop in the Canadian dollar. The Canadian dollar is down half a penny. The price of gold is up $2.80. Oil is down 17 cents. Natural gas is up 3 cents. Aluminum is up $28.50. In Toronto, the TSX is down 5 points. The Venture Index is down 3.15. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 123.74, and NASDAQ is up 119. Still ahead, one of the fastest growing hobbies has become a department at many Canadian universities. Welcome back to our final segment. Well, the Menendez brothers trial is now only a couple of months away, and a limited amount of tickets are being sold for Californian residents. Joy Malvin from CTV has the latest on this developing story.
Public interest was so high, the California court held a lottery for the 16 seats inside the hearing.
And I remember this trial when it happened, and
I think that they were really done an injustice.
Everyone asks why we kill their parents.
A Netflix series and documentary on the Menendez brothers has reignited new buzz in the decades-old case. Eric and Lyle Menendez were convicted nearly 30 years ago in the gruesome shotgun murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty. They testified in their first trial they were sexually abused by their father.
He raped me. My dad had been molesting me.
Prosecutors dismissed the abuse claims as untrue, but new evidence has come to light, including a letter Eric wrote to his cousin months before the murders detailing his father's alleged abuse. And a former member of the boy band Menudo alleges he too was raped by Jose Menendez. Kitty's elderly sister allowed to take the stand, both aunts making an emotional plea for their nephew's release.
I do want them home. They should never have been in such situations as presented themselves. What can a kid do when its father's...
35 years is a long time.
But the judge said he needed time to review 17 boxes, a mountain of evidence.
We're hoping that we will, in fact, get the brothers released.
And the new tough-on-crime district attorney insists he won't be rushed either.
I won't rely on just a Netflix documentary or a Netflix docuseries as the source of my information to make this a very, very important decision.
The brothers' resentencing hearing now postponed to the end of January, and it could be many months before or if the brothers are released.
And departments in esports are expanding, especially in universities, where there are even teams being assembled in strategic ways just to get a competitive edge. Sarah Plowman from CTV has the latest.
Welcome to the warm-up.
I just stretch out the hands and stuff.
A flex to the fingers, a jolt to the joints. Time to get their game face on.
This dance of being able to outdo your own opponent in a one-on-one situation.
Simon Séger and his teammate are about to battle. They'll sit, not sprint, but quick reflexes are required.
I play a lot of one-on-one games. So for me, a lot of it is mental fortitude.
It may seem like play, but this is competitive and at a high level. These players are on the Université de Moncton's esports team.
Esports is an amazing way to get into the world of competition.
And that world of competition is widening. UDM not only has an esports team, but that team now has this training room with high-tech computers and consoles. The school funds the team's travel to tournaments against other Canadian universities.
But it's really becoming a common thing. I think every university is kind of stepping towards that direction of recognizing esports as a thing, right?
They're not alone. A first for Calgary. Bow Valley College recently opened its own esports hub for competitions, innovation, and game development. All part of a booming industry that's growing in popularity.
We have coaches, we have training sessions.
And here there are tryouts. Not everyone makes the cut.
I'm looking for team synergy. How well do these people work together?
It's fun and games. Players will tell you their skills are transferable.
What this teaches you is to be persistent. It teaches you that, okay, I will keep trying. I will keep trying in what I'm doing. Even if I keep doing mistakes, even if I keep failing, I will keep trying.
Words of a fierce competitor. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Moncton.
And that will be all for tonight's cast. Thank you very much for tuning in, and good night.